conduct of the community forum shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes, with each person limited to 3 minutes pursuant to Vallejo Municipal Code Section 2.20.300. Members of the public who address the council as part of the first community forum will not be allowed to address the council again during the second or last community forum held prior to the adjournment of this meeting. At the end of the time sign-up period, I will ask how many speakers we have, and they will each be allowed 3 minutes to speak. The sign-up period for the first community forum is now ceased. Nabi, could you tell us how many speakers have signed up for the first community forum?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 5 speakers.
Okay, then we will give them each 3 minutes and proceed to please call those speakers in order.
David Haldane, go ahead, please.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for your energy and time today. I know it's been a long one and it's probably going to be late, so I appreciate your stamina and your attention. Before I begin speaking, I'd like to let everybody know about the Willie McCoy Vigil going on tomorrow at 974 Admiral Callaghan Way at 5 p.m. We'll be meeting there for 2 hours to remember his life. With that in mind, I'd like to dedicate 25 seconds of my time to silence, one for each bullet that entered his body. May his family find peace. Council, I'd like to speak on the budget, some issues, and how we can get some money. I noticed on a review of the budget that the Arts and Culture Commission grant program has been eliminated. I find that very unfortunate. It does not reflect, I think, the priorities of the community, and I think that we should work to refund that program immediately. The budget also undersupports Mare Island and its infrastructure. We're talking about increasing development on Mare Island. The bridge is behind on its maintenance. I do know that some money is scheduled, but it is not sufficient to meet the seismic or climate change needs, as well as the increased traffic which will be induced on the island. I also encourage you to start now on Mare Island increasing tree plantings, traffic calming, and ADA infrastructure to help mitigate the community impact that the construction and development will have on that community. On issues, I noticed that we have recently completed some water projects, and that is wonderful. Glad to see the water department is getting along. Those roads now need to be repaved. I believe we should immediately prioritize those. We know they need to be done. The homeless need a place to stay. They need warmth, they need hot water, they need toilets. Please immediately place that on the budget. On a quick District 4 note, I have noticed that the number 5 bus at the intersection of Redwood and Sacramento picks up many people in wheelchairs. Many are veterans. It is across from an old people's home. It is near medical facilities. Those people are waiting in the sunshine with no shade for the bus. And I would appreciate if you could put up some temporary shade and even work to permanently install something there so they can wait comfortably. The Nimitz Deal needs more publicity. We need to understand what's happening there. The $50 million of soil remediation is an issue. We can pay for this with a bond issue or with a parcel deal, a parcel tax on anything inside the Nimitz Deal, on any development going there. Thank you for your time and have a good night.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to our second speaker, please.
Melissa Swift, go ahead.
Mayor and Council, first, we are still missing answers to some very serious questions from City Manager Mike Malone about our housing department. When did he and Gillian Hayes know about the Project Room Key deaths? Who was responsible for providing services while dead bodies were decomposing in hotel rooms? Is Judy Shepard Hall still on payroll after being put on administrative leave last May? And when will we receive a full audit on the finances of the department and specifically the Navigation Center? You all spoke about both North Mare Island and the city manager recruitment during closed session, which seem like issues that need to involve the community and should not be taking place behind closed doors. As an example, we learned yesterday in the Vallejo Sun that the firm that hired Greg Nyhoff, Avery and Associates, was one of the firms that was contacted for this upcoming recruitment. The public should absolutely have a seat at the table as we make a decision on which firm to hire. And I maintain that bringing in a full turnaround team that can manage and stabilize the city while also overseeing the recruitment process is the only way we'll be truly able to turn things around. I also want to talk tonight about the need for transparent reporting from BPD. Inviting the public to post on an online message board or send in town hall questions in advance is not a good faith conversation and it's not going to cut it. We know what the issues are and we need to see action. Let's talk about some data that's come out from 2021. First, it was VPOA complaining about how 25% of sworn officers are out on sick or medical leave, meaning that we have a substantial reduction in officers on the street. They are doing this in an attempt to garner sympathy and additional funding, but it brings up the question of the reported 17% rate of vaccination of officers and why these officers are out sick. Why do we not have a vaccine requirement for these staff who interface so closely with the public and are supposed to be protecting safety? Then we had a VPD press release touting that there was not an officer-involved shooting last year for the first time in well over a decade, and excessive force complaints were down 40%. At the same time, data shows that crime in 2021 was similar to 2020 and actually down year over year. This means that we had fewer officers on the street last year, with crime staying relatively the same and less police violence. It's time that we have an honest conversation about what is happening in our police department, where our tax dollars are going, and what strategies will best promote public safety. If a reduction of officers on the street has not impacted crime rates at all and has actually reduced violence from the perspective of excessive use of force, it seems like we need to be talking about whether this system of policing is effective at reducing crime. That's not even considering the past violence of our department and the fact that we have yet to see the badge bending investigation that was promised months ago. If the chief would like to claim that the improved outcomes are due to reforms, we need to see that hard data. How many of the OIR reforms have been implemented? We have yet to receive any updates, especially since VPD gets budget increases from council every year with no questions asked and is constantly crying for more funding. This conversation.
Thank you for your views. We appreciate them. We'll move on to our third speaker, please.
Andrea Source, go ahead.
Hi, Mayor and Council. I wanted to speak tonight mainly about Mare Island once again, which was discussed in closed session. Although I will mention that with my ACLU co-chair hat on, we have been continuing to hear from the community about some serious issues of the treatment of our unhoused neighbors, particularly the need for basic sanitation services, the fear of the encampments getting raided by VPD. And so I want to just continue to keep that in mind, not to mention what was just said by the previous speaker about the lack of answers on those Project Room Key deaths and some of the issues in our housing department. But I spoke last time we discussed Mare Island about specifically the incentives that developers face. And I spoke when it came up in terms of extending the ENA about how important it is that we have somebody negotiating on behalf of the city with the interests of the city and the public in mind, because as we have seen with some of our other economic development deals, namely Callahan on the waterfront and Lennar on South Mare Island, if we give a sweetheart deal to a developer and give them land with no benchmarks, they will sit on that land and they will let it appreciate without doing any development. And Nimitz and SLC have great plans for both South and North Mare Island, but if we don't put specific measurable benchmarks into that development agreement that require them to achieve a certain amount of build in order to maintain rights to the north, for example, like what was in the original term sheet where they had to build on the south in order to retain rights to the north. If we don't do that explicitly, then there will be no guarantee or no incentive for them to really do any of this this project. And especially with the timeline, the 30 days to extend the ENA, starting to wind down, having this discussion in closed session is just not serving the community here. We can't finish these negotiations and then bring it to the public for 30 days and expect that to be sufficient public input. When this process started, we were promised that the community would be brought in, that there would be quarterly meetings. This needs to be an open discussion because we need to make sure that someone on our side is negotiating for the people of Vallejo. And I mentioned this when I spoke at the last meeting. This is a one-time thing. We only get one shot at this. The second we sign away that land, we never get it back. And this is a prized Bay Area island on the San Francisco Bay. We just can't be playing around with it. And we need to wait until we can get solid negotiators, solid community input, and make sure that this deal gets done right and we don't just end up with another Lennar. So I hope that you'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you for your views, Andrea. Can we have our first speaker, please?
Pelton Stewart, go ahead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Pelton Stewart. I'm part of Vallejo Sister City Commission Association. I'd like to speak about an event that we did and continue to work on that brings a group of young people from all over the world. All of our sister cities are participating in the Fillmore Graham International Science Fair. And when it's appropriate, I'd like to present to the council the background information on the event and make sure that our city knows that we are promoting STEM in our sister cities around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. We'll move on to our fifth speaker, please.
Ruskell Kayangyang.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a couple issues to bring up this evening. First, I'd like to protest the North Mare Island deal that's been in existence, as well as the upcoming sale of the North Mare Island properties. The current North Mare Island deal favors the developers, which is the big money special interest, over the people, over the city. The lack of public involvement, no performance and accountability measures, and other issues associated with that deal, along with the developer only paying $3 million. Yet we live in one of the most expensive areas in the country, where North Mare Island is worth way more than $3 million. We can no longer afford these bad decisions such as giving Lennar $1 per year land leases, bad decisions such as buying an $800,000 house for the water department, or even many years ago, waiving $700,000 of development fees for a developer. How have all these decisions helped the city, help the people, help stimulate economic development or addressing homelessness? I don't see any results. The city council needs to put on the agenda a quarterly update from the developers we have agreements with, and also make sure we have strong performance measures, which needs to be reviewed quarterly. We should not be giving away the store or sell out our hometown to these developers or special interests. My name is Ruskell Kayangyang, former school board member. We should not be selling out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kayangyang. That will conclude our community forum speakers for the first go around. With that, we'll move on to.
Excuse me, Mayor. This is Councilmember Metzner. Sorry to interrupt. There was a couple of statements made about North Mare Island, and maybe the city attorney could address those before we go on. Along with, there were two issues. Well, and the recruitment of city manager. And I think people aren't aware of what we can and cannot discuss in closed session.
Okay, Ms. Nebb, would you care to comment?
Be happy to do so, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. With regard to the North Mare Island item and closed session, the City Council, as is required and allowed by the Brown Act, can go into closed session to discuss price and terms of payment and give some direction to its negotiators. But I do want to make clear that the deal itself, when it ultimately and all of its component parts come before the council, it will be a full open public hearing. Public comment will be taken. The public will have the opportunity to weigh in. Staff is committed to putting out the information, including the documents and some summaries of those documents and comparisons of the deals that have, or discussions that have taken place among term sheets. Staff is committed to putting that out well in advance of the city council meeting, where the city council will be considering the item for the public's consumption, opportunity to review it, make their notes, and then come before the council to give comment. The public will also have the opportunity, having had those documents for some period of time, to give comment in writing as well. So I just wanted to be clear, the council isn't going to do this deal, if you will, if it does it at all, if it receives the votes for the council, from the council to go forward behind closed doors or in a way that does not involve the public. The public will have ample opportunity, notice, and an opportunity to be heard before anything is approved by the city council with regard to that item. The same is true relative to a city manager search. The city council is not choosing a city manager recruitment firm in closed session. It's not doing anything other than discussing appointment of a city manager. So to the extent that there is to be a public item on the council's agenda for the council to consider a search firm or a process or how you are going to undertake looking for a new city manager, that too will be a public item before the council. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood. We meet in closed session under the